I always believed that family would be my safest place, the one constant in a world that never stops shifting. That belief shattered the day my sister smiled while stealing everything I'd built. Let me take you back. I was the youngest executive in our company's history. At 32, I had just been promoted to Director of Strategic Operations at a multi-million-dollar logistics firm based in Chicago. It wasn't handed to me, I earned it. Countless late nights, weekends spent buried in numbers and negotiation calls. Flights across the country to close deals no one else could, and a gut instinct for spotting opportunities. That title was more than a role, it was my blood, sweat, and years of sacrifice, and then I got sick. It wasn't just a bad cold. One moment I was presenting a quarterly roadmap, and the next I was waking up in a hospital bed, struggling to breathe. Pneumonia, severe, my immune system was shot, and the doctors told me I'd have to take at least 2 months off work. 2 months. I argued, begged, tried to prove I could manage from home, but my body betrayed me, and eventually, I accepted I had no choice but to step back. That's when my older sister Marissa stepped in. Marissa and I. We've always had a complicated relationship. She's 3 years older, fiercely ambitious, and growing up, she made sure everyone knew she was the star. Our parents compared us constantly. She was the beauty, the socialite, the one who knew how to work a room. I was the quiet one, the nerd who preferred books and business models, but I never thought she'd cross this line. When my CEO visited me in the hospital and mentioned Marissa had volunteered to step in and help run my team temporarily, I was surprised. She worked in HR, not operations, but I was vulnerable, recovering, and honestly, I appreciated the gesture. I thought maybe this could bring us closer. Instead, she used my absence as an audition for my job. Within 2 weeks, I began hearing rumors. My analyst texted me, "Hey, is your sister taking over your projects?" My assistant called in tears, saying Marissa had removed her from meetings. Then I received an email CC'd to senior leadership where Marissa referred to herself as acting director. Acting director. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. The title I fought for was now casually attached to her name, as if it had always belonged there. She never once called to tell me. No heads up, no conversation. Just silence, and then a smiling photo of her on the company's intranet homepage. Leading my team on a client visit. I lay there in my hospital bed, weak and stunned, trying to convince myself this was a misunderstanding, but deep down I knew my sister hadn't stepped in to help, she'd stepped in to take over. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just disappointed and was devastated. The days dragged on in that sterile hospital room, but my mind never rested. I was supposed to be focused on healing, on getting stronger, but all I could think about was what was happening behind my back. What she was doing. I tried to tell myself it was temporary. That Marissa had only stepped in to keep things afloat. Maybe she'd been clumsy with boundaries. Maybe she didn't mean any harm. But every time I unlocked my phone, another clue chipped away at that hopeful illusion. The company's internal newsletter had an entire section titled, Leadership Spotlight. And there she was again, Marissa, smiling confidently with a quote beneath her name. In times of uncertainty, strong leadership emerges. That wasn't just a spotlight, it was a power move. The article even referenced a recent decision she'd made to restructure client portfolios for long-term profitability. Restructure, that was my initiative. I'd spent months building that strategy, and she'd rolled it out without a single word to me. I clenched my fists, heart pounding. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was lie there, lungs barely strong enough to hold frustration. While my sister paraded around in my role like she'd earned it. When I was finally discharged, I went straight home, not back to the office. My doctor insisted I still needed to rest, and I agreed, mostly because I didn't trust myself to face her without losing it. So I watched, quietly, from my laptop at home. I logged into our internal systems. My access was still active, which surprised me. I didn't expect to be locked out yet, but I had a gut feeling that wouldn't last long. Emails were the first red flag. Dozens of messages from my clients, forwarded to Marissa. Some were simple check-ins, others had subject lines like urgent, up on transition. What transition? I never approved a transition. One client even wrote, "Thanks for introducing Marissa, she's been very decisive." Decisive. That word hit me hard. It meant she was making my calls without me. Then there were calendar changes. Weekly leadership syncs I'd started were now canceled. New meetings had been created, and I was no longer invited to any of them. She had effectively removed me from my own leadership circle. But what really made my stomach turn was the message from our coup in a group thread I was quietly still a part of. It said, "Marissa's doing great under pressure. Might be worth discussing long-term succession when she presents to the board." Succession. That word hit harder than any symptom I'd endured in the hospital. They were considering giving her the position permanently. I sat in my apartment in stunned silence. I hadn't even been out of work for a full month, and my future was already up for discussion. I wanted to believe this wasn't all her doing. That maybe the company was panicking in my absence and looking for quick solutions. But deep down, I knew Marissa. I knew how she worked. She didn't wait for opportunities. She made them no matter who got hurt in the process. Still, I didn't want to believe she'd stoop this low, so I picked up the phone. "Hey," I said when she answered. "How's everything going at work?" "Oh, it's been crazy busy," she replied with that performative exhaustion in her voice. "I've just been trying to keep things from falling apart while you're out. You know how it is." I murmured. "I saw the newsletter." "Nice photo," she laughed. "Oh, that?" PR wanted someone from leadership for the cover, and they asked if I'd step in. I wasn't sure, but, someone had to do it. That subtle jab, someone had to do it. As if I'd abandoned them. As if I'd failed them. "You didn't mention you were leading the client restructure," I said carefully. "Oh, that." She said lightly, "It was already in motion." "Right. I just moved it forward. Figured you'd want someone to execute it while you recovered." "And the leadership meetings. The new board presentation." There was a pause. Things had to shift, she said finally. "It's just temporary. Don't worry." But I did worry. And now, I didn't just suspect betrayal, I could feel it. Still, I had no proof that she was actively sabotaging me or trying to take my role. Everything was shrouded in polite explanations, plausible excuses, strategic language. I needed more. I needed something undeniable. Because if I was going to confront her and trust me, I couldn't rely on gut feelings. I needed facts, and I was ready to find them. I didn't sleep much after that phone call with Marissa. Her voice kept looping in my head, dripping with that fake humility she used so well, pretending she was just holding things together, when, really, she was laying bricks for her own empire. The next morning, I brewed a pot of coffee, sat at my desk, and did what I do best. I strategized. If Marissa wanted to play politics, I'd remind her who taught half the department how to play chess. I started with the basics. Email logs, meeting minutes, expense reports, everything that could leave a digital trail. As a director, I still had back-end access to several internal systems. It was risky. If she caught on, she might accelerate whatever plan she had, but I couldn't let fear freeze me. That's when I found it, buried in a shared drive I used to manage. There was a folder labeled Temp Transition. It had been created 2 days after I was hospitalized by Marissa. Inside were subfolders. One labeled Strategy Decks, rebranded. Another called Team Realignment Plan. And then the one that made my stomach turn, Exec Transition Pitch. I opened it. Slide 1, positioning Marissa Grant as Interim Director, Strategic Opportunity and Crisis. There it was, not just ambition, but intention. She hadn't stepped in reluctantly. She had planned it, named it a strategic opportunity. My illness wasn't a tragedy to her. It was leverage. The deck outlined my current responsibilities, highlighted areas where she claimed I had overextended, and offered efficiency solutions under Marissa's leadership. She even attached a cost savings projection, complete, fabricated numbers, and a performance improvement estimate based on her short-term involvement. And then I saw the final slide. It wasn't just about an interim role. It read, "Proposal for permanent appointment pending Q3 performance review." I stared at the screen, stunned, hands trembling, but mind razor sharp. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a coup. I sat back and let the wave of emotions roll over me. Hurt, rage, disgust, but beneath it all, something deeper flickered to life. Resolve. I wasn't just going to reclaim what was mine. I was going to make damn sure everyone knew exactly how she got there, so I got to work first. I took screenshots of every slide, every folder, every timestamp. I emailed copies to my personal account, then encrypted a backup on a private drive. I learned the hard way that digital footprints can vanish overnight when someone panics. Next, I called in a favor from Janice, my old assistant, before I was promoted. She had transferred to legal compliance and still owed me for helping her get that position. I didn't say much over the phone, just asked her if she could meet. When we sat down over coffee the next morning, I slid my laptop across the table. Her eyes widened as she read the deck. "Jesus. This was all while you were hospitalized?" I nodded. She didn't tell me. She didn't even ask. She just moved in. Janice's mouth tightened. "That's a breach. At the very least, misrepresentation. She's not even qualified to present succession plans." I leaned in. "Can you help me?" She didn't hesitate. "I'll start pulling access logs, If she used internal systems to forward or modify your proprietary work, we'll find it. And if she lied on any of these projections, especially the financials she's done. That was the start of my quiet resistance. Over the next week, Janice and I built a digital timeline. Every change Marissa made without authorization. Every pitch she repackaged with my name stripped off. We even found emails where she told vendors and clients that I had stepped down indefinitely due to health reasons. Stepped down. That lie alone could damage my credibility. She wasn't just filling my seat, she was rewriting my narrative. The more I discovered, the more the emotional fog started to lift. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I was angry. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't powerless. And that scared Marissa more than anything. I started calling in other quiet alleys people who had worked under me, trusted me, knew how I operated. I didn't need to rally them with drama. I just told the truth. Marissa's been making moves. She's positioning herself as my replacement, I said in one Zoom call with my core team. I don't need you to confront her. I just need you to document anything unusual, anything unethical. Forward it to me. I'll take care of the rest. And they did. Over the next few days, I received quiet messages with subject lines like, "She claimed you approved this." Client confused. "Why you're not on calls anymore." "She canceled all performance reviews you scheduled." I archived every one. The real breakthrough came when Janice sent me a flagged record. It was a call transcript from an internal audit software she had access to. Apparently, Marissa had scheduled a meeting with the CFO and 2 board members and told them, quote, "I've been running this department for the past month without a hiccup. I've corrected several inefficiencies and managed to improve client satisfaction scores. I believe I'm the stronger long-term candidate for the role. Candidate for my role. I had everything I needed, but I wasn't ready to go nuclear yet. Instead, I crafted my own plan, my presentation to the board. With receipts, with timelines, with cold, irrefutable evidence. I wasn't going to beg for my job back. I was going to show them how easily it was almost stolen. And I'd make damn sure they'd never forget it." The day of the board meeting arrived like a storm I'd been waiting to unleash. My heart pounded beneath my navy blazer, but my mind was clear, sharp, like broken glass. I hadn't slept much the night before. Instead, I stood at my kitchen counter until sunrise, rehearsing every line, every slide, every fact that would shatter the illusion my sister had spun. The board met quarterly, and this was the Q3 review, the one Marissa had circled in her little coup plan. The one she thought would solidify her position. But she didn't know I'd requested to be added to the agenda. She definitely didn't know. I was coming in person. When I stepped into the boardroom, the air shifted. You could feel it, the quiet electricity of something unexpected. 7 members sat around the long glass table, murmuring softly until I walked in. Some looked surprised, a few smiled awkwardly, and at the far end, Marissa sat confidently in her fitted cream blazer, perfectly poised until her eyes met mine. She blinked, her smile faltered. Her fingers tightened slightly around her pen. I took my seat across from her without breaking eye contact. The chairman cleared his throat. "Good to see you, and glad you're feeling better." "I appreciate that," I said, voice steady. "There are some things I'd like to address today. Things I believe the board has a right to know before making any staffing decisions." Marissa laughed gently, trying to recover. "Oh, I didn't realize this meeting was going to be a reunion. I thought we were focused on forward momentum. I didn't take the bait. We are." I stood, plugged in my laptop, and cast my slides onto the main screen. Slide 1, Strategic Opportunity in Crisis Internal. Document created without authorization's title alone made a few eyebrows rise. Marissa sat up straighter. "What is this?" one of the directors asked. I clicked forward. "Over the last 6 weeks, while I was on medical leave, I began. My sister took on temporary responsibilities. Or so I was told, but what she actually did was orchestrate a calculated plan to replace me permanently, using my strategies, my client relationships, and frankly my absence, as ammunition. Slide after slide, I laid it out. The transition folder. The proposal for permanent appointment. The fabricated numbers. The internal communications she sent without my knowledge. I watched the board's expressions shift from curiosity to discomfort to outright disbelief. Marissa's face was a study in crumbling composure. Her calm slowly unraveling with each piece of evidence. "Some of the projections used in this deck," I said, clicking again, "were falsified. I confirmed it with Janice from compliance, who traced the document's origin and the financial inaccuracies within." Marissa claimed improved efficiency. What she actually did was cancel core client reviews and reassign staff without approval. One of the board members looked toward Marissa. Did you inform the executive team that your role was temporary? Marissa's voice cracked slightly. I assumed everyone understood that. I was just stepping up during a difficult time. You pitched yourself for succession, I snapped, voice rising for the first time. You said I'd stepped down. You claimed I was out indefinitely. That's not stepping up. That's stepping over. She looked at me with wide eyes, red spreading up her neck. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just trying to protect the company. I turned toward the screen one last time. Vinyl slide, restoring integrity, a statement on leadership. I've served this company for over a decade, I said, softer now. I've led with loyalty. I've sacrificed time, energy, health. I've mentored teams, negotiated multi-million-dollar deals, and helped grow this organization from the inside out. I don't demand loyalty, but I expect honesty. And what happened in my absence wasn't leadership. It was ambition without ethics. Silence. Heavy. Full. The chairman exhaled slowly, then turned to Marissa. Did you fabricate these numbers? She fumbled. I didn't fabricate anything. I adjusted projections based on what I thought was realistic given new circumstances. That's not your role to adjust. Another director cut in. And certainly not without transparency. We were led to believe you were acting in coordination with your sister. She wasn't, I said. She was acting for herself. The chairman leaned back. I think we've seen enough. This will need to be reviewed in compliance and legal, but for now, I'm reinstating you as director effective immediately. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just nodded. And Marissa, he continued, voice suddenly cold, you are relieved of all duties, effective today. Security will escort you from the premises after this meeting. Marissa gasped. You can't do that. I've given everything these past 2 months. You gave what didn't belong to you, the chairman replied firmly. You exploited a health crisis for personal gain. That's not the kind of leadership we promote here. She turned to me, eyes wide and pleading. Please, don't. Let them do this. We're sisters. I looked at her, feeling a mixture of sorrow and fury twisting inside me. She reached across the table, but I stepped back. You didn't just take my job. You tried to erase me. And now you want forgiveness because it didn't work? Security appeared at the door. She hesitated, then stood slowly, her face pale and shell-shocked. As she was led out. She looked back one more time, but I had already turned away. The room stayed quiet until the door closed behind her. Then the chairman stood, extended his hand, and said, Welcome back. But I didn't feel victorious, not yet. What I felt was exhausted, hollow, and deeply changed. In the days following that board meeting, the fallout came fast and it was brutal. Marissa's name was quietly removed from all internal communications. Her profile was erased from the company directory within hours. By the end of the week, an official statement was sent to all staff, vaguely referring to leadership transitions and a departure due to internal policy violations. No names, no scandal, but the message was clear to those who had been watching. Inside the office, whispers spread like wildfire. People who had once smiled politely at her in the halls now avoided her entirely. I heard she tried to reach out to a few colleagues' old contacts, mutual connections, but no one responded. Her reputation was tarnished. No one wanted to be associated with what she'd done. Even her LinkedIn changed first, a bold seeking new opportunities, and then, a week later, nothing at all. She went silent. Meanwhile, I returned to my office, my real office. I stood there that first morning, looking at everything she'd touched, my desk, my whiteboard, my team's project wall, and felt a strange emptiness. Like someone had walked through my house while I was asleep, touched all my things, and left without cleaning up the mess. But my team welcomed me back with quiet, genuine warmth. One by one, they stopped by, some with awkward apologies, some with simple nods, others just standing there, not needing to say a word. They knew, and knowing they saw me again not as a ghost, not as someone easily replaced, brought a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. Still, the ache lingered. Because no matter how much I tried to file it away like a bad report, Marissa wasn't just a colleague, she was my sister, the person I shared childhood bedrooms with, whispered secrets to at night, defended at school. I kept wondering how long she'd planned it, whether she waited for me to fall, or helped push. I never got a real apology. Not even a text, just silence. But that silence, in a strange way, became my peace, because I finally stopped waiting. Stopped, hoping she'd explain herself, justify it, make it right. I reclaimed my position. I cleared my name. I stood in front of people who once doubted me, and reminded them who I was, and that was enough. Not perfect, not painless, but enough. Closure doesn't always come with clarity sometimes. It comes with knowing you survived what was meant to break you on, that you never needed anyone else's permission to stand back up. It's been 6 months since that day in the boardroom. Sometimes it feels like a distant memory, like watching someone else's life unfold in slow motion. But other times, the details come rushing back. The adrenaline in my chest, the look on her face, the dead silence when the truth landed. But I'm not the same person I was back then. I returned to work with more than just a title. I came back with clarity. Before, I used to measure my worth by performance metrics, promotions, and praise. I lived for deadlines and deliverables, constantly proving myself to everyone, especially to her now. I lead differently. I prioritize transparency, not just results. I've restructured my team, not to make it leaner or more efficient in the corporate sense, but to make it stronger, resilient, communicative, human. We hold open forums every month where anyone can raise issues anonymously. I initiated a leadership mentorship program to prevent the kind of toxic ambition that nearly cost me everything. And I no longer sacrifice my health for my job. I've set boundaries I never thought I'd be brave enough to set. No more midnight emails. No more saying yes to every project. I leave the office on time. I take real vacations. I've even started hiking again, something I loved in my 20s, but left behind when I became too busy climbing. I also started therapy. Not because of what happened at work, but because of what it revealed about my relationship with Marissa, and with myself. For so long, I felt like I had to compete with her, be better, prove I was just as worthy. But that battle, imagined or not, was a prison of my own making. Her betrayal cut deep, but it also forced me to look inward, to ask why I still needed validation from someone who never truly saw me. And, in that painful reflection, I found freedom. We haven't spoken since that day. A few mutual relatives have reached out, awkwardly tiptoeing around the situation, hoping time would magically bridge what ambition destroyed. But I don't feel the need to mend something that was only ever held together by obligation and nostalgia. Forgiveness, maybe in time, but reconciliation, that's a door I'm not ready to open. I've learned that peace isn't always about healing every broken bond. Sometimes, it's about standing in your truth, knowing what you deserve, protecting your space, and choosing yourself even when it hurts. Today, I stand taller. Not just because I reclaimed my job, but because I reclaimed my voice, my worth, myself. There's a quiet power in survival, in enduring betrayal and coming out stronger, not harder, not colder, but wiser. Softer in the right places, sharper in the ones that count. And if there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this. No one can take what's truly yours, not when you've earned it, protected it, and are willing to fight for it when it matters most. I didn't just survive my sister's betrayal, I transcended it. Looking back, I used to think betrayal was the end of something, the collapse of trust, the death of a relationship, the closing of a chapter. But now I see it differently. Betrayal isn't just an ending, it's a mirror, one that forces you to confront what you value, what you tolerate, and most importantly, who you are without the masks. For me, it revealed something I never knew I had. Resilience not rooted in revenge, but in clarity. Strength that didn't come from anger, but from purpose. I didn't need to destroy Marissa to feel powerful. I just needed to stand in the truth and let the truth do what it always does, reveal. Justice doesn't always look like a dramatic fall. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's watching someone walk away from everything they thought they stole, only to realize they have nothing because it was never truly theirs. And loyalty. That's not blind forgiveness or keeping the peace at the cost of your soul. Loyalty starts with self-respect, with refusing to shrink yourself just to make others comfortable, with choosing to heal without forgetting what cut you in the first place. I still think about her sometimes, about the little sister who used to braid my hair or the teenager who taught me how to sneak out without getting caught. I wonder if she ever feels regret, if she remembers the boardroom silence, if she realizes how much she lost for a temporary taste of power. But I no longer carry the weight of those questions because I've learned that true strength isn't about being untouchable. It's about being willing to rebuild after someone tries to tear you down. It's about knowing your value so deeply that even when someone tries to write you out of your own story, you still pick up the pen. So to anyone who's ever been blindsided by someone they trusted, whether it was family, a friend, a partner, here, this: you are not defined by what they did, you are defined by what you do next. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is survive with your integrity intact, your head held high, and your story still yours to tell.